Hey everybody, Brett Tremblay back with another episode of Between Two Friends. And today we have a three-time Inc. 5000 entrepreneur and business owner named Natasha Miller. Tell us, what is Entire Productions? What do you guys focus on?
Entire Productions is an entertainment and event production company. We throw over the top amazing large scale events for mostly Fortune 500 companies. And since we're in the San Francisco Bay Area, those companies that we love working with the most are Facebook and Salesforce and Google and Apple and LinkedIn, and literally just keep naming them all the way down to new startups and pharma and banks and such.
You say over the top, meaning
We really have a focus on entertainment and design and experience design.
so let's walk us through one of your cooler events that you're allowed to talk about. How about that?
Sure. One of the funnest events and biggest and craziest was for Google. It was a holiday event, but we didn't want to do Christmas themed. So we did the theme Out of This World. So it was kind of a space thing. So we did it at the Four Seasons in San Jose. We designed 21 different rooms and supplied them with talent, interaction, food, scents, just everything. It was so amazing. We had stormtroopers doing a ballet, a choreographed ballet. It was like a flash mob. We had so many different bands and DJs and lighting, and 6,000 people in 21 different rooms in a giant hotel, and it still was kind of crammed.
So okay, so let me unwind this a little bit because I'm getting really jealous all of a sudden. Like these are you're throwing the cool parties that everybody hears about and reads
Yes.
about and wishes that they were
Yes.
at, right?
People hanging from the rafters, doing aerial champagne pours. Yeah.
I mean, okay, so 21 rooms, meaning you just saunter from room to room, and whenever you go in, just something different, fun, weird,
That's
normal,
right.
just like, and then you can just choose where you go.
Yes.
Oh wow. That is that is unique. That is how much does something like that cost, Natasha? Give us an idea of, like, you're this huge billion-dollar company. What are you spending on an event like this?
The client already had the hotel, which already had the catering and the food and beverage set. So we didn't, for this particular client, have to do a venue search or a catering search. And these events can cost upwards of $1 million or more dollars, right? In full production, if you're counting everything. But the design and talent for these kind of things is anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000.
Incredible. And look, how do you even get an idea? You're like, I want to do event planning, but I want to do like the crazy cool stuff.
I didn't ever want to do event planning. That was not in my purview, but the impetus of Entire Productions was that I was a performing recording artist. I was a jazz vocalist, a classical violinist. That's not a straight shot to planning over the top amazing events, but it's a gateway. It's like a little peek into it. So I started my career when I was 15, playing for pretty, um, let's say, well, I wasn't going to say corporate, but anyway, not as much fun. Weddings, inaugurations of governors, things like that.
Sure.
So I started really a music and an entertainment agency, and I was supplying the talent to other planners. And then eventually we were kind of strong armed by our clients to produce their whole event because they appreciated our creative direction and our production and our systems and processes. And they trusted us and that they knew that we could do this. So about 5 years ago, we acquiesced and became an event production company.
You're radiating happiness right now. That's the energy that I'm even getting through Zoom. So you clearly love what you're doing.
Absolutely. There's nothing really not to love. It's, everyone's having a good time. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, it can be difficult with logistics and planning, but if you have a great team and you've got great leadership on both sides, and actually all sides, the client side, the vendor side, and our side, then it's a win-win-win.
I've done some event planning, right? And you're talking minuscule on the scale of what, but I'm just saying, right?
It's still nerve-wracking though, isn't it?
Was that was going to be my point, because you said what's not to be happy about, but I'll tell you what's not to be happy about is that depending on your personality. One time, when I was still in college, I was student body president at the time. I came up with the idea for a mud volleyball tournament for a fundraiser. It's actually now been going on almost 20 years since I
That's
left, right?
amazing.
But and so I mean, you got to coordinate the fire department, digging, setting up the teams, running the tournament, the referees. There's all these things, and I would admit, I mean, I was a mess that day. I was yelling at people, and I wanted to have a really good event, and so same thing, 3-on-3 tournaments that I had organized for fundraisers, and some I've been part of some larger ones than that, but I'm always so nervous that the event's not going to go as planned and people aren't going to be where they need to be. That's a lot to handle, you
It
know?
is, but if you have planning and logistics set, and that doesn't mean you have to have them in your own purview, you have to have a team that is excellent at those things and loves doing those things. But, in college, you might have had a team, you may have had some volunteers, but it's different when you have people on payroll, right?
Of course.
And I don't do the things that I'm not great at doing anymore. I'm definitely a visionary, I'm definitely a creative director. I do have systems and process, a systems and process mind and mindset, and I hire to have people come in that can fit within that framework.
Yeah.
But I don't any longer have to do the logistics.
Yeah. So I don't want to skip over those points because they're super important for people listening, who entrepreneurs, if they're listening, are nodding their heads, right? Because we've been through the team building. Um, People who aren't, I hope they didn't miss that. But I brought up that one back in the day because I just specifically remember yelling at someone, and they're like, man, that was
Yeah, you can't
that was
yell.
not handled well by me.
No.
Um,
Yelling is never an option because,
oh,
as you probably remember, it didn't really net you a great outcome. But
yeah,
here's the key to any event, I think small or large. Something is going to happen that is not desirable, and it's likely to be a pretty big thing. And if you go into knowing that, then you're just, hopefully you have done all the planning 2 weeks beforehand so that there's that bandwidth, that white space to be able to conquer the challenge. And it doesn't matter what it is, something is going to go wrong. There's too many pieces for it not. It's how you handle it and
yes.
how you keep it from your client so that they don't have to freak out at all. That's the sweet secret sauce.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, the guy yelled at, he was my fraternity little bro, so it's kind of like, okay, But if you're out there, Alex, I apologize. 20 years later. But hiring the right people, you don't have to be good at everything in business, and I think that's a common. It's like, oh well, yeah, like I know the one guy who always was, or gal who was always great at everything. Well, that's not. You're going to hire people who are better than you at a lot of things that it takes to run a good business, and put those people in a position to succeed. So you can still run an event planning company and be a visionary and not necessarily be great or love doing the checklist and the step by step and being in charge of the logistics. And that was a really important point.
Yeah, and that comes later. I mean, I actually did at the beginning do and know how to do everything. And that set me up beautifully because I can source and qualify the right people now because I know just enough, sometimes quite a bit in what they're doing. So I can tell, am I on the right track or not?
Yeah. Look, because you're not always ready to hire day one, right? You got to learn
No.
how to do things yourself, and you got to hustle and grind and all those fun words people like to throw around. But eventually, team building. I mean, I couldn't do what I do without a phenomenal team, and it sounds like you're the same. So, how many people do you have on your team? Maybe full time, part time, etc.
Right now it's 6 people total. Before COVID, it was 12, and I've had as many as 15 full-time people. That was when we had offices, boots on the ground in London and LA. We still do events all over the world, but we don't have sales offices in those two other markets right now. We ended up finding that we didn't need that.
And now thanks to COVID, especially, right? You can just sit in your office and do Zoom and meet people from anywhere. So
Yeah.
one of the ways that the pandemic has really changed business. So tell us, a little bit about your music, because you mentioned, you played, and you were classically trained, but you put out some albums yourself, some records.
Yeah, 7. I don't know how that happened, but they're all on Spotify and iTunes and all of that. And I haven't been performing in the last 4 or 5 years. I've really focused on entire productions, and you can tell where your direction flows. There's definitely a lot of success there. But I am writing a memoir. It's actually being edited right now. And my music is going to make a comeback because it's really the songbook of my life. So on the audiobook, some of snippets of my music and my recordings will be there. I might perform a little snippet live or something. And I'll do that with the book launch as well. I'm really excited about that. But as far as running my business, being a musician, I can really tell who the excellent performers are.
Yeah.
There's no smoke and mirrors, like I see right through it. So it's a beautiful thing, but that's how I started the business. I was the vendor for all of these other events as the musician.
Right.
And now I'm hiring all of the talent instead of me being the talent.
Well, let me ask you this, Natasha. You have a lot of things figured out, meaning the songbook of your life. Like, you must spend time with on yourself, either alone thinking time or meditating. So I'm just gonna take a stab here, but I'm just getting this from you. So maybe you have a morning routine that you want to tell us about, or you have a personal success philosophy, things that have helped you.
Yeah.
I kind of want to hear that.
I'm definitely not the typical entrepreneur that, wakes up at some certain exact hour, does the 10 minutes of gratitude, works out, then meditates. Like, that is not anywhere near what my routine is. But I wake up at 6:30 or 7, and I really take my time to do whatever it is that I want to do. And every day it could be different. I make sure that I get outside and do at least a half-hour walk. And I live right by the water, and walking by the water to me is the most gorgeous meditative thing that I can do, even though I'm not meditating. And I know now where my sweet spot of flow is. And that's from about the hours of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So it's not that I don't do anything of note before 10, but I know myself, and I don't try to tackle anything of great importance until then. And it works for me. I don't do meditation traditionally, but I do a lot of thought and introspection. I live here alone. My daughter and I lived together for a while, but I really have what I think is a blessing of a situation where I literally get to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it.
That's amazing. And when you're doing your walk, are you listening to audiobooks? Are you just not saying a word intentionally and thinking?
Do
are
you
you
know what?
taking notes?
It's everything. Sometimes I listen to music. Sometimes I listen to podcasts and audiobooks. Sometimes I listen to nothing and really appreciate like the birds singing and listening to the birds dropping into the water and out. Sometimes I'll call my dad and talk to him on the phone. And then sometimes when I'm right outside of my house, I live right on the water. I look forward to interacting with whoever's out walking their dogs or something and just have a conversation. So there is no set anything for me. And I don't really understand people that have that, but that's okay because everyone is put together differently. One of the things though that I would like to put on the record is that I've been hearing a lot of entrepreneurs boasting about how little sleep they get or how little sleep they need. And I would venture to guess that those people are in their 20s, maybe early 30s still. But I just think it's such an unhealthy approach to life, to hear what they're saying. I think, well, they are going to burn out,
Yeah.
and that is not sustainable.
Yeah. Look, I'll jump on this train with you, and a lot of buzzwords like the grind, and the grind includes Friday, and outwork the rich, and well, all these little cliches people like to come up with. To me, the most successful person is the one who has a business, but their calendar is always empty because they have figured out a way to elevate others to do a good job and have freed themselves and given themselves the freedom. So personally, I think what
100%.
you're doing, regardless of if you're starting at 8, 9, or 10 or 7, you're taking 3 hours in the morning to clear your mind, to think. It's called Think and Grow Rich, not Work and Grow Rich. Being on the hamster wheel never gets you anywhere. You've got to get off
Right.
the hamster wheel. You've got to think, and then make decisions on what you want in life, and if that's growing a big business or not. But be honest with yourself about what you want, and just working 80 hours a week. If it's on a hamster wheel, guess what? You're in the same spot as the person who's on the hamster wheel for 10 hours.
Right.
It doesn't matter because you're not getting anywhere. And
This goes
sleep.
back to what we were talking about before about hiring people that really do the work that you're not excellent at. And the first year I was on the Inc. 5,000 list, I made it into the issue in an article by Lee Buchanan. And it was because I rated very high on the personality test for delegation. When I let go and started delegating, that is when my business started to scale and grow. That is when I grew by 65% year over year.
Mhm. Awesome. That's look, there's so much more we could talk about, Natasha, but I want to end on this note. You're very, very pointed and level-headed, and you have a lot of cool things to say and offer. And you're coming out with your book. So tell everybody where we
Yeah.
can hear more about you.
For the core business for events and entertainment, that's entireproductions.com. And for me in my crazy life, including the book, my podcast, Fascinating Entrepreneurs, and a course that I'm creating for entrepreneurs, you can go to natashamiller.co.
Well, there you have it, natashamiller.co. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time, and keep up the amazing, inspiring work.
Thank you. And good luck to you and everything that you do.